Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of Away from the Keyboards. I am your host, Rui, and today we have an interview with Madhi. Madhi is a tech leader and entrepreneur that has over a decade in the industry, and today we are going to learn about his journey, some lessons learned, and some really good gems that he wants to share with all of you. So sit back, relax, join us for this conversation, and don't forget, drop in a comment, like and subscribe, all those good things. They help a lot get the show out there and sharing it with more and more people. So without any further babbling from my side, Mahdi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Roy, for having me. That's amazing to have a chat together.
Cool, thanks for coming. So one of the things that I've been wondering around, well, one of the things every time I start this podcast is the same question to every guest is like, what is your origin story? How did it all started? I saw from you moved from Iran to Italy and most recently to the Netherlands.
Yeah, this is a very good question. Time to time, I also think about it myself, and I had this before as well. But one of the interesting thing that happens to me as I'm going further, this story becomes nicer and smoother to explain for me. And to summarize it, it's from village to a big city, I would say, because I was born in a small village in Iran, and then I think the great thing that my dad did was migrating us to a big city in Iran. And I was always thinking, okay, if he did that, what I have to do for myself and my family? And due to living in Iran and having all the sanctions, which is kind of a country with a lot of wars, then I always think about, okay, maybe I should go somewhere that they can just live in a merit-based system and just live their life without any limitation. Then the idea came to my mind to, of course, leave the country and go somewhere else. So I did for some time research on where to go, and of course, I studied in one of the top universities in Iran. So getting to know from my friends, especially one of them was the main catalyzer for me to leave Iran and go to Italy. So I left from Iran to Italy to continue my master in computer engineering and science. And I studied data engineering, sort of with AI stuff, which is now very trendy. And from there, before even leaving Iran, it's now around 18 years. I'm in the software industry. At the beginning, I was a hardware engineer, so building boards, working with VHDL, Verilog, FPGAs, all these names, you name it, the hardware stuff. And then move on and became more on the software side. So I was architecting on the hardware, then moving to the software, and went through the ladder. So as a software engineer, went through the ladder, did more architecting, and became a tech leader over the past years. And working and living in Italy was always for me interesting, but also I knew that's not a place for me as an expat to stay in the long term because of the different reasons. But then Netherlands was the target to go. So I applied after the graduation, and I could find a job here, and I moved here. And now we are here for more than 7 years, and being also Dutch in a way by the papers and also speaking a bit of it. But then I continued in that and became kind of a tech leader and builder. And that has been recently moved in the past years to an entrepreneurship roles and to be continued solving more problems for people. That's how the transition went from a village to a big city in the Netherlands.
Cool. And when you moved to the Netherlands is about the same period that you kind of met one of our mutual friends, right?
Yeah, you mean Ram? That you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah, yeah. I met Ram when I was working in National Netherlands. So I worked for two very Dutch brands and very orange brands in the Netherlands. I joined Zoofer, which is now a booking platform, and I after that I joined National Netherlands. So where I met Ram and other amazing people and made new friendships, which still continue, and we meet time to time.
Cool. And you, as you mentioned, like you have been growing from a hardware engineer to a software engineer and more recently into leaderships. So, can you tell us a bit how it was your first time as a manager?
Good question. So I think it comes back. I did some leadership before being a tech guy when I was a captain in a football team. So I was a professional football player before, and I was captain for a few years. So I knew leadership from there. And I always see companies and teams as professional football club, and I don't see them as family because I think there's different ties to it. But then when I was leading, the main thing that you knew is like you need to be humble, you need to be down to earth, and then you are all playing the same team. The captain is as important when there's a problem or when there's a crucial problem, crucial moment, and that's the moment that they say, "Who is the captain?" So I think that mindset for me brought me to the tech leadership, my first real experience that really I loved it and I learned a lot about it. It was in Zufer that I became the tech lead or team lead, and different names. And there, the experience that I had, I always wanted to have a higher impact, and I wanted also to not only lead people but help people to together make something happen for the company or for the people. So my first experience was amazing because we were a team, and organically I became the leader of that team. Of course, I was honored to be that person, and I worked with amazing senior people to build a booking platform for Zufer, which was before a review platform and became a booking platform. So next to all the challenges on technical side, then I got a new challenge to also keep the people motivated and create a high performance team, which luckily I managed to do it.
That's a curious story because you're not the first person that I speak with that ended up in the leadership by growing within the same team and by almost being chosen by the people in that team to help out and lead. And I think that's kind of a nice way to be able to lead your peers, right? Instead of just being pushed on by manager as, okay, now you need to grow and become a leader, and that's your path forward, right?
Yeah, I think that's true because I always had this eagerness to lead projects, to lead teams, but I always love to be a technical person becoming a leader. I don't use a manager name because I think managers are more for factories and leaders are more for the places that we work. And the reason is I always experience that I work for the tech leaders, let's say, or the people active in the IT, which they were coming from MBAs or from other fields that they didn't have a technical background, but rather more management background. And I've seen it gets to problems. And I've seen that was my experience, with all due respect to those people. But that was my experience that it doesn't work because at the end of the day, there's no a full understanding of the two sides of the story, basically. So that's what I love, and that's what also kept for the coming years, and also now that I'm still coding in the evenings or weekends or during the day, and I stay close to the technologies while also maybe leading also big teams for the past years. Because for me, it's very important to keep the touch with what is happening in bare metal. Of course, the time will be minimized, but it's still, I want to be having a meaningful conversation with tech people in my team and my company. And organically growing brings a couple of things. First is brings the trust from the first day because people see it and they agree to it. Second, it brings also very high motivation to you to see the system respects you as an individual to have a higher impact. I think that's two sides of the story that brings a lot of energy together and it can create a bond to make it happen.
Yeah, that's nice because over the last couple of years is probably when we saw more growing these roles of engineering managers and people that are managing engineering teams that have a technical background. And before, as you said, it was more someone that came from a business background or a project management background that used to be dropped on an engineering team, and then they wouldn't have that kind of understanding of something like how important is to have task coverage for you to be able to perform better at after a while, right?
Yeah, and one of the very famous negotiation conversations you had back in the days, and also even these days, is the tech debt, right? Explaining tech debt to a leader which is non-tech background, this is like a nightmare. So now consider also technologies. When you say, okay, now we are doing a modernization of the stack, and what's the reasoning behind it, and what could be the risk if we don't do it, and all these things, it can smooth out the conversation if the person has a similar background. If doesn't have it, then for sure it's still possible, but it takes more time and it takes more conversations. And sometimes you're not sure if the message has been transmitted properly. So, and one of the things that if you have the background, it also you can be more kind of relevant to the team as well to push them in the right direction. So because you're relevant to the market, you know what's happening, you can have a bit of anticipation of the future, and then you can already push the team in the right direction, but not only the team to the right direction to deliver business values, but also to be better engineers to grow themselves. I always say if a leader doesn't think about a day that he needs to go and be replaced by his team, that leader better to just leave the job now, because as a leader you're not there to stay there forever. You should also have kind of a career growth for yourself, and then you should have also make space for the rest and show them this is something that I achieved and you can achieve, and just lead by example, I can say.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I always say to my teams, my goal is to make myself not needed. That's my goal. Every time that I start working with a team, that's where I want to go. And because from my experience, that's what gives me also career growth. Every time I make myself redundant, new opportunities come by, and it also helps others in the team to not be dependent on you. So that's a good advice to
Yeah.
share.
This is connecting me to my previous podcast I had with XPR. It was exactly what I said. It was the best leader or the one that makes themselves redundant in the system. And redundancy doesn't mean that you don't have a job. It means that you will find also other opportunities and challenges for yourself and just make a space for the rest. One of the interesting things for me, or one of the things I tried to keep as a quality, was always being close to what happens. And even at being the CEO of Kruso and being in that leadership role and running the company, I was also working at least 4 days a week and 36 hours a week for the client. I was overworking to 60 hours a week to just make the company running. But for me, it was very important to be with my team in the field and understand what's happening in the market. And of course, when the company, when you start a startup, it will grow and you will take more strategic time for yourself. But for me, also was apart from being a smaller team and then you grow the company, it was also knowing what's happening because I was running for the first time a software consultancy and I want to learn more as a consultant how in the field you should be shining. And that's important. When the team sees that, when you are closer to them, when you understand their language, their grammar, there is already an implicit trust and connection that you don't need to gain it. It's already there. You can just build on top. And that's very nice.
Indeed, you do build a rapport with the team by showing that you understand what they are talking about. Cool. And going from leading software engineers and more technical roles to leading managers, what has been your experience so far? Like, which one do you prefer, and which one do you think it's the most challenging?
Very, very interesting question. To be honest, I mean, leading people is always challenging because apart from the role, people have different flavors and people are unpredictable. So you try to create an harmony and create a kind of synergy in a team, which means that you try to create a culture, an environment which is beyond the personalities, which is beyond the personal preferences, but something as an ecosystem that we all respect and has values and we all contributed to those values. So I think you have more challenges to create that ecosystem and kind of environment when you're working with managers because you have more ego in the room, you have more strong opinions in the room, and at the same time, as a kind of a servant leader, you have to be a good listener and listen to everyone. But also sometimes I think I found it more critical or maybe more challenging to make straight decisions or more harsh decisions when you're managing managers than when you do it with the engineer because there is you want to also show them that you trust them and you want to give them autonomy to make decisions, but at the same time sometimes I reflect on my some of my decision and I said if I was there I would perhaps be more sharper and while giving the autonomy but also kind of drawing some lines as leading them. So but at the same time it's also very joyful because you can be more strategic because you can think beyond, you can be more visionary in those conversations. But also, for me, it's very important, not only managers, but also the people that I manage, to see them grow and stand for them and clap for them and even enjoying their growth. So for managers, I always also, or the team that I had, I always wanted to see them in active in what they love to do and help them to achieve that. So I hope I was successful. Uh, but in general, it's a job that never ends. You will always manage people, and managing people by itself is not as easy as managing your AI agent. You follow some rules. They will have new information every day. They will have new features every day. But the hard thing is to just make that ecosystem which actually grows with everyone.
Yeah, technology is way more predictable than humans, even the AI agents. Cool. And so basically, it's almost, if we can draw an analogy, it's almost like scaling up, right? If you're managing managers, you have a bigger chance to scale up what your vision is because you drive it to the managers, then the managers drive it to the teams, but also creates more challenges as anything at scale creates challenges, right?
Yeah, the challenges is there basically because you are creating kind of you have layers. Even if you say I'm not hierarchical, I'm flat, and at the end there is a hierarchy at the end of the day, right? So you create layers, and the more you get away from the reality, the least you can have a good understanding of what's going on. It increase the risks of being successful, because then, of course, you trust the managers and managers managing them. But sometimes I prefer to talk to those engineers in the team, understand what really happens, because maybe in the lost in translation could happen, right? And also sometimes the main crucial thing I learned over the years, which isn't a skill, is raising concern at the right time. It's two things. Is basically you have, of course, right person, right time, right place as you hire people. But also I think this is the second thing I found it very interesting and very important in companies, that you have the people with capabilities and competencies that knows when to read the signals, how to read the signals to prevent a disaster or prevent a longer actually recurring process. So I think raising the incident, raising the problem and concern at the right time, that's a quality and competency that you learn over the years. And that's the place that the layer could have a risk for you, because you cannot really see the reality happens. But in general, I think scaling up when it comes to the managers, you have managers underneath, and then they will hire people and put them under them. But is as the same challenge as you scaling your team, because you will have at some point you cannot have 12 managers, 15 managers under you, because the bigger the profiles are, the limited the entity, the actually quantity should. But I believe with AI, one of the things I was active over the past years is you can reduce the redundancy layers, can maybe manage more people, but you just need to do more automations, and you need to do it cautiously and gradually, not over the night, fire all your middle managers and replace them with AI. So I think that's a gradual maturity that you can get to.
Yeah, that's a cool point, because it's almost like bringing your own personal assistant into the mix so that you can let go of more of the remedial tasks that you always have to do, because as a manager sometimes you have repetitive tasks that you need to do, like, I don't know, looking into invoices and approving costs and those kind of things, or even hours or like timesheets or those kind of things, that if you can automate a bit of that, you can scale yourself to be able to guide more managers than you could guide before.
Absolutely. And I think the best metaphor I always use is the microservice architecture. I think it's applied everywhere, even between relationship between people. So for me, managers are the microservices, if you want to see it from a micro level, and the people inside the team are the processes and the functionalities of the team, right? So when you're an architect, basically when you lead managers, you are an architect in a way, right? So you need to manage not only every microservice does the right job, but also they have a very proper communication with each other. So think a manager of managers from that level, this doesn't matter anymore. You need to be a very good solution architect to know how to make the relationship working perfectly, and then how to ensure that every microservice runs best. So what you need to apply is a proper observability approaches to read the signals, to get the right information, to make the right decisions at the end of the day.
That's a nice analogy. Never thought it like that, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So you almost need to be your perfect Kubernetes cluster.
I think I thought about it. It's very much applicable, because consider a product is including several microservices and several components, right? But if every component works perfectly, but they don't interact properly, you have a broken system. So a company is a microservice by itself. It's a different departments. Every department is a cluster by itself. And every cluster has its own parts running, right? So then the main thing that a leader can do is observing properly and make decisions. And what we're talking about automating is the triggers.
Yeah.
When I see a CPU is above 20%, then scale actually the engine. And then the same thing, if I see a manager is going to burn out, maybe I need to redistribute the responsibilities or add a new manager. So these are, I think I love just the microservices and solution architecture. These are very easily applicable to people. And that the level of autonomy that we discuss about microservices applies to manager and the teams as well. That's the level that you need to let them be autonomous.
Indeed. And what you were talking before about bringing in AI into the mix is to help you understand those signals or raise those signals even at a quicker level.
Okay.
Cool. Before we move into our next topic, we have a recurrent segment on the show that is called Pass It Forward, where a guest pass forward a question to another guest. And the question to you comes from our previous guest, which is Adrian. He's a communications manager, and his question is, what is the worst case of bad communication causing a mess that you ever seen? And on the flip side, what's a time when you saw great communication actually saved the day?
Yeah, I thought about it. It's a very tricky and very nice question to think about. What is your top level screw up, and what is your top level actually the toughest communication you did? I think, yeah, I mean, you can think about a lot of mistakes. I mean, I did a lot of mistakes and I learned a lot. But also, it's very tricky sometimes to name things because you want to keep some stuff confidential. But I think one of the communication that didn't go properly through was in Nationale Nederland, and I can name that. But it was about me raising a concern which I was suffering or I was seeing it for a long time. I think Ram, if listening to this, he remembers perhaps what I'm talking about. But what I tried to escalate it. Basically, as normal things, you try to escalate it. But I did few mistakes in that escalation communication. One was I had to do it sooner. The time expired. So I think one of the things that I love to people remember, it's very important you live in the right time zone. Don't live in the past, don't live in the future. Don't take decisions that was expired yesterday. Try, renew, and then live in the current time zone. That's also the problem that a lot of communication goes wrong because you live in different time zones. I'm thinking about future, you think about past, and we don't get to a common ground. So I raised it in the wrong time because it was a bit late. But at the same time, I raised it the way that it could be perceived that I raised a few times and I never got an answer, and now I escalated it more and more. So I think the communication was a bit harsh being received. So if I go back, I will rephrase that. I will try different channels because that one, even if the communication went through, but it didn't went through without any backfires or any challenges. So that I think I thought about it when you asked me this question, and the learning from that communication, the phrasing is important. What you're saying, the channel is important based on hottest at the hot level or hot rate of the conversation. Because I believe that a lot of things shouldn't go through the text if it's really a high stack conversation. It should go through the normal human face-to-face communication because then you don't get read incorrectly. And then the other thing was the timing of communication is very important. So in communication, I believe channel, time, and the content makes a huge difference. And in that communication, I could improve all of it, I would say.
That's a great point that you just touch upon that before we go to the second part, which is the channel, how important the channel is. Because most of the time when you write something, you write it with your tone of voice, but the person reading it will read it with their tone of voice. And they can completely misinterpret what you just wrote because of whatever punctuation you put it. And most of us are not native English speakers, so we write as almost as we think about it.
Exactly.
And each one of us will have a different interpretation of the text. Yeah.
And this is very interesting because humans, it's psychology, right? You read a message, you have a different understanding, depends on your own mood. It's not only because you are a different human. Because if I'm in a happy mode, I already had 2 drinks, I will read it completely chill. What if I had the suffering from a lack of sleep? I had a fight with my kid in the morning and I opened that email, then I will read it completely different. So I think that interpretation could be different human by human, but also on the mood of people. And that's why sometimes I suggest always, if you want to send something, please read it at least twice before you send it. And please read it twice before you have an understanding or comprehension of the message. So that helps. And also sometimes I'll really ask to make a gap of 1 hour or something between the two reads or the two writing, because then you will have a fresh air. But I always recommend when the things go in high stack, never use the text channel, but use it the face-to-face. Of course, you can communicate the results and the outcomes by email to get the consent of the people participating. But just think about your channels. And what I said to my wife, and we got to know each other, she was my girlfriend. The first thing I told her, I said, remember, for me, I believe the words have weight. So you always need to remember what you say is not just saying. It brings weight to the other person, which sometimes could be very heavy, but you don't notice. And that's important.
Cool. That's great advice. And what about the best example of communication that you can share?
To be honest, on the best communication, I think again hits on the 3 aspects of it, right? Channel, content, and the time. And I think one, I can say a few of them, but I mean the main thing that I went well, I think in IKEA was a few examples I can say. But I can say about also all the experiences. I can say I had a good ones that I really liked. But one of the things that was also I can highlight also was in IKEA we had all this concern about delivering projects, and by the communication, while everyone was just going to panic mode and getting scared and whatever, I could calm things down by just sending some right communication to right people and bring the focus back to the team to deliver on time and deliver what was expected. So I think, yeah, some details I cut because to keep them a bit confidential, but in general, the main thing that went well was I was seeing the panicking go on. I tried to read the people, I tried to read the concerns and rephrase them in the right way with some facts to keep them calm and kind of get them away from the panic mode. Because I was chill and the rest were panicked, there was saying, okay, are you crazy? And I said, I'm not crazy, let me explain. And then that explanation helped the team to come back and rebuild the trust and that we can deliver what he was expecting.
That's a good example of proper leadership communication.
Yeah, I hope so. I try. But I also, to be honest, I more than myself, I really enjoyed communication, seeing from great leaders that I experience with, and also reading in or seeing in the internet. So any communication that goes well and they really touch you, I think are the ones that have a human part to it, and they are oriented around facts, but at the same time they are a bit futuristic and optimistic. So I'm generally an optimistic and ambitious person. So, and I think whenever I add those flavors to my communication, it a bit washes out the current time concern, and it gives people a bit of perspective that whatever, there is a greater future, and whatever, we are able to figure it out. So let's just talk. And I think talking and facing the problems in non-personal way will help the communication goes through.
Indeed, it does help us for millennia of evolution. So
Yeah.
it has been working good so far, people talking with each other.
Yeah, and because I mean, the main thing is like we talk about ego, but also let's just focus on what we are aiming to achieve together, about the flavors, about different opinions. What we are talking about, what we are doing or contributing, does it helps to achieve the goal or not? Because I try always to stay as a goal-oriented person. So in any communication, you have a goal. So I think what I recommend in communication, another thing that I try to do it myself, before doing any type of communication, text, oral, video call, in person, before jumping to that, 5 minutes before, think about what is the expected outcome you want from that communication. What is the goal of that communication? Why you're going to talk to that person or to talk to that team. Draw those goals for yourself and during the conversation, focus on that. So if I go to communicate with the team members that we have a fight over the pull request and I'm going to talk to him, but I don't go without goals, then I will be just going through the waves that happens during the conversation. But if before that, I explain to myself, okay, I go to talk to Roy because I want to tell him what was my thought around what I built and what actually I didn't like about the comment. Or in general, I can say, let's go and merge this PR. That's my goal of this communication. I want to go to talk to him to get the approval to merge my PR. Then the conversation will be completely different when you set a goal, when you expect an outcome from the communication and get to the communication. And then you will see, you will really not hear the irrelevant thing during the conversation to get irritated by. Yeah, but Roy can tell me, yeah, but you know the PR, you did it also in the previous PR. And then you don't care because focusing in the current point, you want to merge this one. So you say, yeah, you're right, but let's focus on this. So your mental system will force you to achieve the goal that you set. And of course, I don't say you will achieve that, but that just help you to have a non-personal communication rather on a goal-oriented conversation.
Indeed, instead of just trying to win the argument, you're trying to achieve a goal, and that way, yeah, it becomes more clear what you're trying to do.
Exactly, and I think you can confirm me. The conversation that before the conversation start, people says, "Yeah, let's in this meeting achieve this and this and this, or try to get some decision on this and this and this." You already have a much better feeling because the agenda is set, right? And I think doesn't matter who initiate that, but anyone initiate that will kind of structure the communication and structure the conversation in a way. Also, with my wife, to be honest, in personal relationship is the same. If I'm going to talk to her, I say, okay, we're going to talk about finances today, right? So let's see if you're going to get some vacations planned for this and this and this. I just give you a random example, but then we really focus on that. We don't talk about, oh, you went to Monaco yesterday, and then that's it. No, this how we're going to plan for the future, and then you focus on that. I think it moves from a blaming game to a cooperative game to achieve a result.
And again, it's what you mentioned before about being in the right time zone, not being caught up by the past and focusing on the present. That's a nice one.
It's the same also as individuals. I always say to my team members or friends, it's about also all the motivational speakers. They say, forget about the past, focus on the future. This is again time zone issue. If you are really every night you're thinking about, oh, I had a better life then, oh, I could do better, or what? I mean, you'll be always living not today, but in few years behind.
Indeed. Cool. And you have been working for others, you have been working also for yourself for some time, and you founded your own company. How was that like? What is it, the process of founding your first company?
Yeah, this is a very interesting story because when I founded Kruso, it didn't come as like a bare metal or scratch company, right? I founded this startup by the capital from the headquarter. And this opportunity completely come out of the blue and out of my expectation because during the time that this came, I was already planning that in a few years I will start my startup. But I was thinking about starting a product startup. So I was thinking, okay, I was working on some ideas, talking to some people and learning more about entrepreneurship. And then during that time, I got this opportunity on my way. And it took a few months to hammer it and then make a decision about it. But also, I had talks in IQ as well for different roles to apply for, but I had it as a plan B. So that went also very nice. And then I decided to found the branch of this company here. And I started from scratch, but I had a capital in the bank to start and do it. But then I brought my experience and the network for the first time. So I said, okay, this opportunity, let's go and jump and learn about entrepreneurship and building a company, which I learned a lot. And now before, when I was thinking about building a company, I said, oh, how are you going to take care of that and that and that and that? And now in 2 days, I already built two companies in just a few days last month. So it's up and running, accounting, everything is in place and it's working. And that was a great transition. I could start learning much deeper things about running ecosystems. Because when I was in IKEA, previous company, I was managing budgets. I was playing with money. I was running and managing people. But this is important because then you learn to the bare metal about laws, legal stuff. You need to take care of tax. You need to take care of paying salaries. And then it completely, the type of stress you have when you move to start building companies or starting a company completely change. You get a new set of stress, which is amazing, but also could be very challenging. So that was the feeling. I just felt suddenly the stress types is completely different. And now I'm responsible to run this ecosystem and make it profitable. I'm happy that I could make the company profitable after 12 months. As my first experience, I could bring the right people and bring clients. I could earn also very good revenues after a few months. But that became also, I was lucky because I made myself ready that this company going to fail, but I'm going to learn a lot about it. But also, yeah, I tried to work hard with my team and we could make it happen at the end of the day. But also after that, for the past months and year, I became also mentor and I'm doing advisory for a few companies and startups. And now I'm working on my own startup and co-founding some stuff around. But that a kind of gap of understanding what that means is now filled by experience, which is still I'm learning, but I got a lot of new connections, a lot of new people around me in my network, which helps me now say, okay, how I can build this, which type of people I need, and put them together and make it happen.
Cool. And focusing about on building that team and that people, how was it to start hiring your C level or your executive level in that startup?
Yeah, I was basically for me was the main thing I wanted to build that company was also I use my own friends network, so I tried to bring from different expertise the people that they had to help me running that, but they were all experienced for a few years. They worked in their own actual topic like product, people, processes, technology, and I offered them, and they all actually with open arm accepted. So I opened the company, then hired them, and we start going, and then we hired more people afterwards underneath. But the thing I tried to say always, the startups up to 20 people, you're still building the culture, you're still building the values company. It's not something that with two people you do it and then the rest gonna follow. So that's very important that the first 20 people you hire are the people that are aligned with you. So I did also some mistakes on that, but I learned a lot how to should approach it with that level, because one of the important things that you should do is when you're building the team, especially the first 20 people, it's very important those people have a mixture of hands-on experience and have a mixture of leadership experience. So the leadership experience from the first people that you're bringing in for seniority is very important, because then you are not the only person needs to fight for being in the company, but everyone will be in the same boat and also have a common understanding of what does it mean to lead a new initiative forward. So we learned a lot together, and I learned a lot for different things. But hiring, especially for startups, the main thing that you should bring is the people that believe in you and believe in what you are building, and they also share the same vision and they share the same future with you. And then you can trust, and you have a line of trust, and you bring them in and build it together.
That's a point that I think we touch upon as well when I had a podcast with Ram, and he was talking about his ventures as well. That the hiring the first people was the hard part, because you're not just looking about it in terms of technical ability, of hard skills or that you have for that job, but at the same time, is your culture aligned with what we want to build as a company? Because in the end, that's kind of the hardest part to teach another individual, is the culture that comes
Yeah,
about.
exactly. I mean, the culture is important, and the main thing you should have is you should have a common understanding that you are in it together. So you need to get each other back. You need to get each other stand behind each other and cover for each other. And the startups are messy until you don't get to the scale up level. It's messy, and this is very very normal. So you should have people that can function in messy environment. You should have people that can not only function but also bringing discipline, bringing structure, and helping to build that structure together. That's why it's beyond execution skills. You need a strategical visionary people, especially for the first people. But also you can have, it doesn't matter, they need to be a director or whatever, they can be senior engineers, but have such a quality and competency. So it's very important that you have the leadership competencies, and you have a kind of the feeling that wake up every morning to go to work to build the next thing, and that's important.
And I think that's a great piece of advice for us to end this podcast. So any entrepreneur people that are listening out there or thinking about hiring new people, focus on this, focus on having those skills. But before we call it quits, Madhi, thank you so much for coming. If people want to know more about you, if they want to follow you, know more about the companies that you have, how is the best way for them to do so?
First, I should say it was a really pleasure talking to you, Roy. It was a time quite a while that I didn't talk and didn't have podcast, and now it's refreshing things and bringing new experience I had over the past time. It was very interesting to review by myself. If people are interested, as I said, I call myself a tech builder and tech leader, but also an advisor for startups and scale-ups. If they need help or something or advisory, or just have a coffee or following me on what I'm doing, they can find me on LinkedIn, Mahdi Fanidisfani. Just follow me on LinkedIn. That's going to be the latest updated version of me will be present always there. I'm building also some websites and those things and some companies, which I will announce that there. So if you're interested, just feel free to follow, to connect, to DM me, and I'll be happy to get a coffee together.
Cool. And I'll make sure to add all of those to the show notes so that people can click about it and find you on the socials. Again, Madhi, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure. And to everyone still listening, keep your tech strong and see you again away from the keyboards.